Yo, yo, yo. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Best Practices Show. Hope you guys are enjoying your day. And I got a good one for you. I have my new friend, Shirdan, and we've examined a few topics in dentistry, and you're going to see he's a really great thinker. The name of this episode is called I Hate Teams. Now, he doesn't really hate teams, but he changes the way you think about the people you work with. It is great. And he talks about the sustainability and the 4 components of your practice. You're going to love this. So hope you enjoy the episode and hope you guys enjoy your day. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practice Show. My name is Kirk Barrett, where we take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all over. And if you're a dentist, you're thinking, gosh, I'm building this practice. I got all my technology, I got my license, I bought the practice, but you're thinking about the most important component of this. It's the team. And so I've got my new friend who I'm really enjoying conversations with because he's bending my brain on a lot of things. And it all comes back to our thinking. And and Shirdan, and he said, you know what, let's go with this. Let's call it I Hate Teams. I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. No, Andre, I just like being completely transparent. You and I have only gotten to know each other a little bit, but I'm really enjoying these conversations, and we're going to unpackage this. But before we do, I always like a little bit of an intro, a little bit of a bio on who you are. So who is Andre Shirdan? What do you do?
I am a recovering consultant. So I got out of the game a little while back. I'm retired. And now what I do is, honestly, I pick projects here and there where I work with offices on putting out fires, on helping people with really small ideas.
Okay.
And it's usually about, let me find a way to get you over a hump.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll step back and let you go from there. I'm the guy who kicks people out of the nest. That's my job.
Okay. So if you're running, if you're in a recovering consulting, is there like 12 steps for this?
Yes. I'm on step 11.
Okay. So maybe that'll be our next podcast is like, how do we as consultants get into a recovery, but I want to unpackage this too. And so let's talk about the why before the how. Why did you pick that title? I Hate Teams.
For years. And, I guess a lot of it is because, as an employee in the practice, as somebody who's worked in other industries other than dentistry, I've been to hundreds of team building events. And I mean, I ran the youth group at my church. I took them to these team building events. And there was this real big high until they got on the bus home. Right. It was this real big high in the employees that I took on these events and then the ride home. And I never saw the sustainability of that idea of together, everyone achieves more. Mm-hmm. And the way that I have always illustrated it is in offices, any office we've ever worked in, the lotto goes to $500 million and everybody buys a ticket. So as an office, we go out and give somebody $1 each and they go buy the tickets. What happens if they all hit? The doctor is the only person coming in that Monday morning because everybody else is at the state capitol collecting the check.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is it really a team? Did everyone achieve more or did we do it individually?
Right. So, okay, I'm totally picking up what you're putting down here. And so, Andre, you don't quite, I'm going to play devil's advocate. You don't quite understand like the market. So, because we're hearing all this, this is different. These are different times. I put out an ad. Nobody answers it. Even when I get people, I'm trying to keep them motivated. I find out more after I hire them. So you've heard all of these things. So let's start with the 101 version and then take us to the mass. Help us think differently.
Well, a lot of it is team building, and that's the only way I can put it. My company's called Crew, and the whole idea that I'm from Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a huge rowing town. It's a big crew town. We got University of Penn, we got the biggies. And what I realized is that you could be 5'2" or 6'2", and when you get in that boat, you row at the same pace as everybody else, or you get off that boat.
Right.
And what I find is that we hire people for whatever reason and expect that they're going to row, not realizing that they have bad days, they have good days. And we should be able to say, hey, you know what? You're having a bad day. Get off the boat today. No problem. But you can get back on tomorrow. But everybody should have like a safe word. Call you up and say, hey, Kurt, I'm having a bad day. Can somebody fill in for me? But then we have to make sure that everybody in the office is trained to be able to fill in that gap.
Right.
All right. Man down, but not the practice. And that's okay. But we have to be able to hire to that end. My favorite example is always, if you look at a corner and you've got a Chick-fil-A, a Burger King, and McDonald's on the corner, it's the same pool of employees, but everybody will say, oh my God, how wonderful are the kids who work at Chick-fil-A?
For sure.
Well, that's a hiring process. That's not the kids.
Yeah.
It's the same kids, the same high school.
I would totally agree. And, I love that test because not only do I tell people to take that test, but they experience it all the time, no matter where they go. And you'll see it's the process. It's the flywheel that they've created. I mean, those kids, I'm going to get some of the data wrong, but I'm told that they have to watch 40 videos and pass tests. And they're not necessarily competency tests. They're core values things. They're like, I joke, but it's not a joke. I would hire a kid from Chick-fil-A today. I don't even know what they would do. I just feel like they're better prepared to serve people once they come to the marketplace. So if I'm a dentist, how do I unpackage that?
Yeah. Well, the big issues are maybe we should ask some of those hard questions. Maybe we should say, here, sometimes we're here until 7, 8 o'clock at night, although our schedule typically says 5. How do you feel about that? And if you've got somebody who says, hey, I can't do that. I got to be out of here at 4:45.
Yeah.
Don't hire them.
Right.
Look for the next person. And, I've said this over and over again. I think I've got some 20 somethings, my boys, and I see things from a different perspective now that I have those kids. What they think differently, and I shouldn't expect that they think the way that I do. I do a big test in my seminars where I show the screen with a gold watch on it. And I say, if your patient tells you, hey, I got my gold watch and now I'm ready to do these implants, how many people in this audience get that reference? And most of them don't, because they don't know about GM retirees. They've been there 40 years. They got the gold watch. It's engraved on the back. They don't get that. There is no, that mentality of I'm going to take this job and have it until I'm retired is gone.
Yeah.
It's now about the experience. I'm going to take this job. I'm going to get the experience of doing it. I'm going to move on to the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing. And what are the beliefs and missions of the business that I'm coming to join? Because that's a big part of who I go to work for.
Right.
So we've got to be prepared for that. And we've got to ask the hard questions and talk about teamwork in a very different way.
Right. Right. And so do you try to keep the word team out of a lot of you're being purposeful about your language and keeping teamwork out of that, and you call it crew work? Because I agree. I mean, I think those people on a crew work harder than ever. It's amazing, especially if you watch the Olympics. You're like, those, holy moly. And let's also throw in there, I mean, dentists aren't necessarily the best communicators. And they're also handicapped with the other thing is which they have to be working on people in order for their businesses to work. Where you are a true entrepreneur, you can shut down for a couple of days and develop team members or invest them. So there's a natural hazard that goes with this, but the same principles apply, correct?
I agree. And I think a lot of that is, when we do have that time off, when the dentist that we work with have the time off to do it, write down some processes.
Yeah.
It amazes me that when I started in dentistry, I knew nothing about dentistry, but my brother-in-law sat down, the dentist I work for, and he set up a bracket table, and he said, "This is the way I like it when I do a composite."
Right.
And he said, "What do you think?" And I went, "Okay, can I go get my camera?" And I took a picture of it. And I could duplicate that process over and over and over again. And he was completely against it. He said, "No, you'll get it. You'll get it. You'll get it."
Yeah.
And I said, let's build this so that if I'm not here, somebody else can step in and do the same thing.
Right.
Because I'm a complete idiot when it came to how to set it up. But now I know, or I really don't, but I have I've got a template I can just put down and do it. So take the time to build it so that we don't have to duplicate the model over and over again. And now, again, it's not about building this kumbaya teamwork. It's about rowing. There is
Right.
no process, just row
Right. Right.
and repeat the process.
And repeat the process. Now, a couple other things I just want to know. I mean, this is just at the top of my mind. I'm very curious about what you're saying. Have you found you're still dealing with people? You know, is there a certain number in dynamics? Now, I'll prompt you with the question. I have found in my own personal experience, once you get north of 10 people, you can't manage all these people. You can't check in with them. You know, there's a certain like a level of clarity, or something goes away right about between 10 and 12. I mean, even Jesus had staff problems. You know, there's challenges like that happen somewhere in that area. And I've found my own personal experience, once you get to 12, you have to have a leadership team. You cannot manage 20 people on your own. Have you found the same?
Oh yeah, and I love. I mean, and I think we get caught up in titles, but I love when we have key people in areas,
Right.
and we have somebody who's who's sort of oversees and sort of is the lead person in the clinical area
Right.
and the lead person at the business area. You know, I love doing that, because then the doctor can just be sort of the general manager of the whole thing. But just like in football, we've got an offensive coach, we got a defensive coach, and then they all coordinate together, and they have a coordinator who does all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, it should be that when scale gets to that sort of 10 people in an office, that's when it gets crazed. But it also means that we also have to take the time to get together, so that there aren't these pockets of us versus them.
Right.
Yeah,
Now,
that's
now
an
listen,
issue.
you're talking my jam. This is my thing. Now, I've done everything wrong for many, many years. And then I started like listening to people around me, and I actually got a real coach who busted my chops a lot. And so I'm going to prompt you with this question, because you kind of know where I'm at. Chick-fil-A has 61,000 employees. Like it would be really easy for us and really kind of irresponsible to go, you just got to get everybody rowing in the same direction. People go, okay, done with this podcast. There's a glue that keeps those people together. It's core purpose, core values. And same thing in my business. I meet a lot of talented people. They come and go, the best ones. We've got a fabric that matches up. It's a glue that's bigger than words. It's a glue that's bigger than like an environment. Environment's important, don't get me wrong, but there's a glue that's like deeper than words, and it's core values, core purpose. Where does that fit in what you're talking about as far as team, and how do you feel about that?
Well, we talked about this the last time we talked, and I believe in the 4 pillars of a business, which are people, process, product, and for us, that's productivity, and then philosophy. And again,
Yes.
philosophy is that glue. Philosophy is that thing that weaves through everything that we do, because even, when I was in sales, people would say, and I sold, high-end fashion. So people would come to me and say, does this look nice on me? And I go, does this work for you to wear to this event?
Right.
And they'd go, yes.
Yeah.
So it really came back to philosophy. It didn't matter how high the fashion was. Could you be seen in this?
Mhm.
Will this fit into your dynamic? When I talk to doctors and they say, hey, should I buy CAD cam? I mean,
Right.
we'll throw that out there. And I go, does it fit into your work process? Can you afford it? There's the profitability part of it. All right. Will your people use this if you buy it?
Mm-hmm.
And does this fit into your overall philosophy of care? And they go, can you tick those boxes? If so, let's go find the money to get it. And it's really all about, I tell people, just stop asking me questions and go back to those 4 things. Can your idea stand on those 4 pillars? And if so, move forward.
Yeah, I'm having these moments too, because I talked to a lot of people, and I actually went back and listened to our podcast because I loved it. And those 4 Ps were brilliant. And then I actually watched our show that you mentioned.
Profit.
So you got to mention where you got that from, because I'm like, oh, Andre's brilliant, because really a lot of what you get challenged with as a business owner, it's not 72 things. It goes back. So tell about the origin and
Well, I did it long before this, but it became popular with the show The Prophet, and that's what we're talking about. So Marcus Lemonis, who is The Prophet on MSNBC, he talks about people, process, and product. Okay, and he talks about it over and over and over again for those three things, but he works on philosophy. So although he tells people you got to have great processes, you got to have great product, and you got to have, great people, he steps back and then he asks the questions. How do you feel about what you're doing? Where you're going with this? Does this fit into a model that you're working? And that's all philosophy, which he
Right.
doesn't talk about, but that is the overriding thing. It's the same with, you look at Gordon Ramsay when he talks about making a menu, and he
Yeah.
talks about it and he beats these guys down. But really what he's doing is the same thing the military does or what dental school does, break you down in order to build you up. But it's still all about philosophy.
I
And
love
that's the
this.
glue.
Yeah. Now, if you're a listener, you know how this show goes. Like, we want to help you. That's why it's the Best Practices show. And so if you're a dentist, listen. So help me through this, Andre. I'll play the dentist who's listening, saying, listen, I get it. I totally get it. But it's 20 years now. I'm still dealing with this stuff. Like, I deal with the fact that I got some challenges at the front, then I get a strong personality, and I'm trying to keep everybody happy. And I get the whole like code word where if you're not having a great day, I get all that. But it's getting a little weird now. So would you say, hey, listen, I got to go back and look at one of these four and put the emphasis on one of these four in order for those problems to go away? Like, what would you coach me on? Where do I start?
I always say, we've got to start with philosophy. You got to tell me
Right.
who you are, what you're, and so many times I have people who go, well, I've done Pankey, I've done
Yeah.
LVI, I've done this, and they go, okay, so which one is the best for you? And they go, well, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I go, okay, let's write it down, but I don't want it in calligraphy and I don't
Yeah.
want it on the wall. I don't want this, we strive to be amalgam free. Da, 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 da. I don't want this. I don't want it to be something where nobody will ever read it again.
Right.
I need the philosophy to be really clear. The elevator pitch.
Yep.
Can you tell it to me in the on the ride down on a short elevator trip? If you can tell me that, then we can package it and we can give it to everybody else in the office.
Yeah.
And when somebody deviates, again, safe word, I can say, hey, are we off track? Are we off process? Are we down staff? Are we out of our financial range? Are we off message?
Yeah.
And then we can circle back.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
Andre, you're talking my jam now. So like, I'm loving this. That's why I think you and I could talk for hours on anything. So of course I'm reading this book called, I'm a CE junkie. I love books. I'm reading Atomic Habits, which you probably already read 13 times. My wife read it 2 years ago and she's like, honey, you should read this. And I'm like, it sounds kind of weird. And she's like, no, it's your jam. So now everyone's reading it and I'm the last to read it. And so like it's saying, how you read things and it's not necessarily new. It's just phrased a way that you're like, oh my gosh, that's said really well. And what you just said, I'm reading in the chapter, he's like, listen, we're going to talk about like building all these things, but first you have to decide who you want to be. You know what I mean? And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And for years when I would work with a client, the first thing I would do is walk into their office and, in the practice and look around. And, here's a big poster of St. Augustine or Pebble Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, so you want to play golf? And I go, let's figure out how we can get out of the office to play golf more often. And I go, that's your center point. Or pictures of the kids or whatever it is, pictures of, mementos from the church. Let me know what you want to do, and then we can figure out how to make the practice work so we can get out of here to do that thing. Because the practice is just a vehicle to get to where we're going. Treating our patients, if you love doing that, let's figure out how to do more with that dynamic. And let's figure out how to make your life happy while we go through this practice, because it's a 40-year journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things I love is I love stories and I love illustrations of this. And you've seen a lot of stuff. This morning you were talking to Linda Miles. I want to ask you about that in a little bit. But like, you've seen examples. So if you're listening, like I want you to get a good picture of what Andre's talking about. So Andre, think about like a great example of somebody who's taken these concepts and you can see evidence. And then let's take a look at the other side so we can help people. I look at this as a continuum. You're not perfect. You're somewhere in the middle. Sometimes you move this direction. Like what's a great example and what's not so great an example from what you've seen in dentistry?
Well, the best examples are those folks who either love dentistry. I'll give you an example of somebody who, a good friend, practiced dentistry 30 years, looking at retiring. All right. Loved dentistry, but realized the path needed to be to retirement so he could enjoy retirement with his spouse. And then he went out and bought a piece of equipment. I won't tell you what it is, but a piece of equipment, and realized he loved dentistry. So what we did is figured out a schedule so that he could do the things he loved and the things he loved.
Hmm.
And it became something where, this was a path to retirement that included dentistry, as opposed to I got to make that $5 million to put in the bank so that I can retire.
Right.
And I've lots of success stories like that. But I'll give you the other side of that. I've had in my career um, two dentists who've died chairside.
Wow.
Um, one of which came back from a vacation spot. He bought a vacation home, came back to treat a patient who didn't want to see the new doctor, to adjust a lower denture and just reward, died falling onto her.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
So
I've been doing this 25 years. I haven't had anybody die chairside. That's not
yeah,
fun at all. Holy moly.
adjusting a lower denture that he had come back from a vacation spot to do.
Right.
So, you gotta enjoy this life, and you gotta figure out how to enjoy the practice and the people in the practice. And a lot of it is, practice the way you love.
Right.
Keep going to CE until you find the guru or whatever you want to follow, but mix all those things, because there is no one correct path. There's just paths. And doing this whole series on what I call the forks in the road, and there really are forks. I mean, we're going to hit a fork, take a
Right.
fork, hit a fork, take a fork. And that's a big part of dentistry, is finding that path, that new path that you didn't take yesterday.
Right. The other thing people don't talk about often in continuing education formats, let's say you get through this fork, you find a good group of people and you're like, oh my gosh, now you have another challenge in front of you. These people need to be challenged. You can't just set them and forget them. So what has your experience been on that side of the whole crew building piece of
Well,
dentistry?
and every staff member in the world will hate me for this. I hate bonus systems, but I love.
Wait. Okay, you got tell us why. Come on, because I get that question every week.
Well, for one, I have yet to see a bonus system where anybody remembers what they got the last time.
Right.
And I've yet to see a bonus system that actually encourages anybody to do anything more.
Right.
I truly believe that that what you get paid is what you get paid. You should not get bonused to do the job you were hired to do. And that's just how I am. But I do believe in rewarding the future. So
Hmm.
I'm a big proponent of, hey, you know what? I have people who struggle to make their car payments, so let's lease cars for the office. I mean, that's a better path for me. Let's find a way so that we can all go to the ADA meeting wherever it's going to be next year. Those are achievable goals. I take trips a lot with offices. I just got back from Key West with a practice. Those are the kind of things that I think are bonuses. Let's go out and let's have dinner together in Key West.
Right.
Let's sit on the beach and enjoy the sunset together as an office, because those are the things that I think are bonuses. But at that $100 in your pay packet in December, to me, is just a joke. And it doesn't typically, it's looked at as never enough.
Yeah.
So I hate them.
I'm with you too. Now I gotta tread lightly because there are, I don't know, I always get in trouble when you know how this is. You get older, you can't say, well, I know this for sure, because then you're always challenging what you're thinking. But it's been my experience that bonuses don't work. I actually think you should pay people as much. I mean, they should be paid extremely well. But you're right. It should never be with a handout like every week or every month going, hey, did we get there? And I do have a lot of teams. I have a team in North Carolina. Once they hit their goals, they go to Mexico. They bring the spouses. They, do the chef and the whole thing. And the team loves it. But it's a celebration that they do together. It's not an envelope type of thing. So I totally love what you're talking about. And then, as far as longevity goes, let's go back to that. Let's say we get through the fork. We find a way to keep them challenged and engaged. Like, what about the longevity? Are you saying, like, don't worry about the longevity? When people are here and they're creating value, and when they raise their hand and say, Doc, I need to go on and do something else, we celebrate the fact that we've given them wings.
Oh yeah, and the beauty of, and again, the beauty of the way I think about a practice is, I want you to succeed. I want you to
Yeah.
go on and do something else. I can't tell you how many hygienists have become doctors, how many assistants have become hygienists, whatever. I applaud that But guess what? I need a cog to be able to put in place when they're gone. And that goes back to process. I have to
Right.
make sure that my process is I can bring somebody from another practice or from the local bank or the local Chick-fil-A and put them into place. But that also meant that I spent the time to build that process and make it clear so that when I put somebody in there, the expectations are there, the outcomes are there, the philosophy is baked in. It's
Yeah.
all good. So I love when people move on.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a dentist in our community. He had the greatest dental assistant ever. And he said, the assistant came to me one day and said, I want to be a police officer. And he's like, no. And in the same breath, couldn't be more excited that they chose a career they really want to be in. And I said to him, I go, what do you think? He's like, oh, every once in a while, you just got to take a deep breath and kind of pat yourself on the back. You've grown people, you know?
Yeah.
And I love that. And he's way younger than me. I'm like, you're so smart. Like, that is so great that you've grown people onto where they want to be. I'm loving that. What do you think? Now, again, you have all these conversations. What do you think people fundamentally get wrong about the teamwork concept other than what we've talked about?
I think most people think teamwork sustains, and I think teamwork is cotton candy.
Right.
It's just that hit that we need every now and then, but it's not sustainable. You know, the crew or the idea behind crew is rice. It's the thing that is just like substantial all the way through life. It's not cotton candy. It's something where we can revert back to that every day, and everybody has each other's back in that process, but it has to be baked in. It has to be something where we all understand it and we all realize it. And there is no, oh, when Sally's out, nobody posts checks.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be. The office can't run. It can't be Mary's out tomorrow, so I guess nobody's going to see her patients. It has to be that way. There's no stacking of instruments in the sink. We all chip in, we all row because we all have a final outcome that needs to be that finish line. And that finish line happens every single day. Every
Right.
single day we have to do it.
Right.
So.
Right. And just time to celebrate. And they go, you got to remember who you're talking to. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but the whole cotton candy thing versus rice. I get the rice baked in. I'm not a cotton. So the cotton candy is just kind of more of like a whole
Just
bunch
fluff.
of just a fluff. Oh, there you
Just
go. Okay.
fluff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So,
just fluff. And you know what? I love going to these events. I mean, I've seen Tony Robbins 3 times.
yeah.
I love that stuff.
Right.
But at the same time, it's cotton candy. It
Right.
works until you run into somebody who doesn't care.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
have the sugar high, and then I usually go down and crash afterwards. We've all
Yeah, and it
been
cost
there.
me $7,000 for that.
Yeah. Well, would you agree? Like, if you take your team to a great event, it's going to confirm what they already know or they've experienced. It's further confirmation. They might not know everything, but it just gives them that confidence that, hey, we're on the good. This guy's talking our jam, or this woman's talking about our jam. It just gives us confirmation. We're on the right path,
Yeah. But one thing I love to, especially, when I go to an event or when I have somebody come to an event, it just warms my heart when I get a call a couple of days later and they say, I'm looking through my notes and it says that you said ... How do you implement that? So they got the idea, but now I can see that they're actually adding it to what they do on a daily basis or modifying it based on where they're going. Because, if somebody says, hey, you said X, Y, or Z, but we're in Texas and we don't really talk like that. You're in the Northeast and you talk a little different. How would you say that if you were in Texas? And let's make that happen. But at least I realize that they're thinking about it and it's not something that's just going to die on the vine,
Right. I love it. So it's not sustainable. It's just building it in, making sure that it's part of who you are, what you do every single day. And are you a big fan of like starting right? Like, let's get all focused here instead of everybody flying in, picking up a handpiece or their equipment or their, like talk about the communication piece of the crew work that you believe in.
So I am the most flexible, inflexible person there is. So I'm like bulletproof
Wait.
glass.
Flexible, inflexible. So now, okay.
So people say, oh, you have to have your huddle first thing in the morning, whatever. I go, you know what? If I've got 50 people in my office,
Yeah.
maybe right after lunch is the best time to have a huddle. And we talk about the next 24 hours. So I'm good with that, but our huddles are all consistent. Again, flexible, inflexible. So I need you to have your huddle, but I need you to go through very specific things on a regular basis, and it has to be a huddle.
Right.
Don't show up in the huddle and say, "Hey, Kurt, how was your weekend? Everything good? How's the kids?" Yeah. That's not a huddle.
Yeah.
That would never work in the NFL. It's got to be bam, 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 and done.
Absolutely. Yeah, you asked me that question. I'm going to dominate the huddle with a story from this weekend. And it might go off the rails and not provide any value to where we're headed today,
Yeah. And very consistent, very specific information, and it's got to be something where we're addressing needs of the day and moving on. The other thing is I want to start every morning differently, and I want to start the huddle with different people every day.
Right.
Because there's nothing worse than hearing the same person drone on and on and on and on and on about something you could care less about. But let's look at it from a hygiene standpoint. Let's look at it from a front desk standpoint. Let's look at it from the assistant's point of view. And everybody take on a different role every day, but bring something to the table every day.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I got to ask you this too, because we're getting more and more dental students. We had 2 of them in our office last Friday. It was so much fun. And then we also get the associates that don't own practices. And here's what they say. We're the people in the industry that most of you guys forget. You disrespect us. Like they say that to me. They're like, we're the unsung heroes. You guys talk about owners, all that kind of stuff. Like we do a lot, but no one talks to us, for us. We have this voice, and it's a very important one. And Andre, what you're talking about is really important, but like the people I work for, that's not going to happen here. How do you prep them? Because I don't want them to be discouraged. I want dental students to be encouraged. And we even had a pre-dental student here. I'm like, you're walking in the greatest profession ever. You're going to see some weird stuff. You just got to hold true to why you started this in the first place. Because once you get out the other side, if you can hold on to your convictions, build a great team around your core values, you're going to be okay. What do you say to those younger segments of the dental marketplace to keep them positive? What's your suggestion?
Well, that's tough because it's endemic of the business we're in.
Right.
The business we're in is a top down, where I think it needs to become more employee owned. And that goes back to bonuses.
Right.
I really believe that we've got to break this top down mentality and start thinking a little bit more about how we run the practice as owners at every level.
Right.
Because if staff doesn't understand that their paycheck is part and parcel of that production that we do, then that disconnect happens. Right. So I know I'm off where we were talking, but I'm going to circle back to an associate coming into a practice where that top down's happening. It's probably not going to change, and no matter what we say is going to change it. But they're going to be part of that culture long term. See if they can make it happen. See if they can sort of get through that mire and make that practice different for them. Because again, if they're coming in at the age of my kids, and I know my kids are coming into businesses now looking for how do I become part of this culture, not just how do I get a job, where's my desk, I'm never going to be. They want to be part of that culture.
Yeah.
So that's what you've got to change the culture when you come in if the culture's not there.
I totally agree with you, and I don't know if it's an Abe Lincoln thing, but like whatever you are, be damn good at it. I worked at Applebee's. I still love this. It's one of my favorite things. I tell my kids all the time, I was 3-time employee of the month. And they're like, you're so weird. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I was an employee. I'm going to be damn good at it, and, when you do that, you get paid. Here's the thought. If you're not happy with what you get paid, do more than you get paid for. And then guess what happens? You get paid more, but that's not your goal. The goal is that, and through that too, like I never wanted to own an Applebee's, but I also crystallized what I liked and what I don't like, so that when I had my opportunity, I know exactly what I want here. And dental students, the same thing. Sometimes, dental school, the dental students say all the time, this is hard. Sometimes it's one foot in front of the other, recognizing what you do and what you don't like, so that when you get out, here's the coolest thing. This is a great country. You can do anything you want. You can put your flag in the ground and go, we're going this way, and nobody stops you, right?
Yeah. Years ago when I was in sales, we had a term, and everybody kind of knows this. We ate what we killed.
Yeah.
So if we didn't sell something, we didn't eat.
Yep.
And if everybody believed that in dentistry, they would realize that this business goes forward with the successes of the business. but you can't eat what you kill in dentistry because you need the person for the next time. You can't kill your
Right.
patients. So, but we've got to build that momentum so that that relationship churns. So we got to find out that churn. If we continue to see that, and some of the noise that we hear in dentistry, we have 22 new patients per provider per month, that kind of stuff. If that's happening, then we're obviously losing patients because
Right.
there's only so many seats in the practice. So let's forget about that and let's figure out how do we get the most out of the relationships that we have,
Yeah,
and we go
absolutely.
forward.
Yeah, and we're talking about relationships. So, like, we'll wrap this subject on teams, and I'm going to encourage you guys to check out everything Andre's doing and see. I'm going to come see you speak because it's always insightful. But talk about relationships. Now, this morning you were on with one of the heroes in dentistry, Linda Miles. Like, you're a pretty sharp guy. Like, are you trying to learn from one of the best? Like, I'm only asking this because I'm having FOMO because. I would love to be part of that call. Like, you always learn from these heroes, right?
I do, and I seek out everybody in the business of dentistry. And it's funny, in the last 2 weeks, I've talked to people who I've either followed over the years, I've known, uh, in some way, shape, or form, and Linda's been one of those people who has been sort of my North Star,
Yeah.
and I've always loved her. But she's also somebody, and just like your reaction, um, it's reputation. It's the reputation, and it's what every dentist, go back to your associate. It's every dentist lives on their reputation and not
Right.
on the dentistry.
Right.
Linda is, for dental consulting, our North Star, and her reputation is the why we want to be like her.
Yeah.
You know, those are the things that I seek when I work with a doctor. I think every day, if I'm, because we travel so much, if I get hit by a bus while I'm here and I have to rush to an emergency room and they're saying, "Oh, go see a dentist," in my book, who do I go see? Well, I want to sit in their chair or not.
Right.
And it's an interesting thing. And I, always seek to be that North Star where everybody says, "You're the guy I want to come see
Right.
when this issue comes up." And that's, I love when my phone rings and somebody says, "Hey, I reached out to you because somebody said you're the guy to talk to about this." And even if it's just for me to give a referral to somebody else, I love being that kind of North Star when it comes to that. And Linda's been mine, so I can do it for the next person. And I hopefully everybody will do it after that.
Yeah, and those were the good guys and good gals coming in dentistry. Linda is definitely that. And I tell young dentists this, I tell my kids this. There's nothing better than being successful and easy to talk to. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
being giving, like whoever you are, if you're a dentist and you ever achieve something, one of your favorite pieces of this is like watching the next generation succeed. They're not your competition, they're part of your legacy. And so that becomes fun. And the thing that Linda does for me, or did for me, like, she's seen it all. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world. She can see things I can't see. And she's like, "You're not seeing this." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh my goodness." Her insight, her confidence, her knowledge, and her belief is my favorite thing. I couldn't even tell you exactly what she said. It was her eyes that told me the whole story. But, and I say
Think
that.
about this. Think about this. Her practice lost her as an employee when she became the guru for us.
Well, how
So
about that? You know what I mean?
that's it. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
the person who lost her as an employee gave her to the world. And that's what we have to all think about as we build up these people. Our,
Yeah.
our team is the next gen for whatever we're doing.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Great stuff. So, Andre, any last thoughts you have on this whole "I hate teams"? Only you could say that. So, let's wrap this up. What do you think?
So my wrap up is this, and I tell people all the time about this. You know what? Read an article about the best team in basketball. All right, the
Of all
Bulls
time.
of all time. So you're
Oh,
talking about Jordan, Pippen, Rodman.
Right.
Okay. Quote from these three guys: "We have never spoken to each other off the court." All right. The difference is when you're on the court, you play and you play your hardest. When you're off the court, you don't have to be friends. We don't have to sing Kumbaya. I just need you to do your job. The residual is maybe we do get a margarita every now and then, but I want
Yeah.
you to play the game and I want you to win the championships. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm
I
watching
love
that.
doing this with you.
I know. I love doing it too. I'm actually watching The Last Dance a second time because the first time I watched it, it was like a fire hose. And now I'm listening to every story much more carefully. It's truly one of the greatest, stories in all of sports. It's crazy.
And the guys don't even like each other.
I just love how candid they are, like extremely candid. And that's the piece I appreciate, like, because from the outside as an observer, I mean, it was just one of those things where everything worked perfectly. You didn't know there was bombs going off all the time behind the scenes, and yet they were still able to row together when they needed to at critical points. So, Andre, if I'm a dentist listening, how do I find out more about you? Where do I go?
Easiest place is go to www.thecrewprocess.com. That's awesome. How you can find out from me.
Awesome, buddy. Well, thank you for being on. I'm going to keep having you back over and over again, and we're going to explore all of these important subjects of the future of dentistry with me. So stick around while I say goodbye to everybody else. Thank you guys for joining the Best Practices Show. Hey, if you enjoyed today, which I know you did, do us a favor. Just hit the share button, share with your friends, and keep sending us suggestions for things that you want to see from Andre and all the other friends that we have. I love this stuff so much. I'm going to try to spend the rest of my life in this podcast booth because I love talking to you guys. And so hope you enjoyed today. If you enjoyed today, do us another favor, hit the review button and give us a review because we can find more people like you to listen to podcasts and protect this great profession. So until we see you guys next time, keep watching the Best Practices Show. Enjoy the rest of your day.